There are no justifications, and that's my point. If you're falling behind, even if you can't measure it, something is lacking. I mention money because it's an immediate indicator of where you stand. Let's say you're 30 years old and earning $30,000. That means you need to wake up each day with a sense of urgency. You need to start treating your life like you're losing because you are. You can't stroll. You can't even speak leisurely. You need to start running and grasp something crucial. The first thing is you need to be working over 60 hours a week. Let me repeat that. If you're behind, you can't just work 60 hours a week. You need to be pushing closer to 80. Yes, that's correct. You need to sacrifice sleep and take on 2 full-time jobs to boost your income, because until you increase your earnings, you can't lead a fulfilling adult life. Not a happy one. You might live a mediocre life, date women of lower caliber, 2s, 3s, and 4s. Your life will be filled with mediocrity and fast food. Honestly, guys, it will be impossible for you to do what you need to catch up, because we talk about self-improvement. But here's where it gets real. You can't hire a personal trainer, a nutritionist, a life coach, an image consultant, any of these things, because you don't earn enough. If you can barely pay your bills, you need an additional source of income. I emphasize this because it's what you have to do. You have to start working. I've already said, if you're under 40, single, no kids, and you're not working over 60 hours a week, you're lazy. But if you're financially behind, you need to be working closer to 80 hours. Yes, that's 16-hour days. That means all you do is sleep and work, sleep and work. Let me illustrate what this means. You need to shift into overdrive. 0 excuses, no women, no dating, none of that. Put yourself on lockdown for at least a year to get your mind right. What are you doing at the bar having a beer, watching the football game? Dude, you're broke. You're in these rooms and living a lie, and that's why a lot of guys are depressed. So what you do is kick your life into overdrive and use the additional money you make to double down on self-improvement. That means if you've been getting by on one job, you need to get a second one. Get a psychological evaluation, find out what's holding you back, get a life coach. If you're out of shape or overweight, get a personal trainer. Use your second job to start improving your life, because when you start liking who you see, you'll do better. Any competent, ambitious man who's on his purpose knows if your finances are unstable. When we talk about going to the spot, having a couple of drinks, and you know you only have $20 in your pocket, and we say, "This round is on me," and you know you can't afford to buy a round. So if you've had to live a life of going to the bathroom when it's your turn to buy drinks, or even worse, you're not around people like that. It's always, "I buy my stuff, you buy yours." Dude, you're dying inside every day because you don't go anywhere or do anything because you don't want anyone to find out that you've been living below your means. That's real talk. You feel bad, so it's like, "I'll just go to work and go home." But see, what you're doing is beating yourself up. You're living life in jail. Better to say, "You know what? I'm gonna go out and work," because at least you'll get the satisfaction of going to bed exhausted, but your money is coming in. You need to go into life overdrive. Overdrive on self-improvement. 0 excuses, no women, 0. And then the highest levels of accountability. You need to confess. You need to admit to your friends, "I'm messing up. I'm 35 years old and still living like a teenager. My wardrobe is like a teenager's. My income is like a teenager's. I date like I'm dating a teenager." As a matter of fact, if I lost the job I have right now, there's no way I'd be able to get another job making this much because I have no skills. I've been living like a teenage boy, and I'm gonna tell you, I know guys out there, good dudes, men who don't own a suit, haven't worn one since high school. What's in your closet? Nothing. I'm like, how did you get to this point? And it's not even just about income. Some guys actually make enough to afford these things, but they don't live like it. I'm like, so it's one thing not to have the money, but if you do have the money and your wardrobe and appearance still look like a boy's, you're still a boy. You may have more money than the first guy, so you feel like you're better than that. Okay, but what are you doing with your life? If you're living a life where you're not exposed to anything you wouldn't have been exposed to as a teenage boy, we have a problem. You have to get really clear on what a 30-year-old man should be. Let's just say a 30-year-old man and a 21-year-old man should be living 2 different lives. The 21-year-old should be out there chasing it. I would expect the 18 to 21-year-old to be in college, partying, drinking, chasing women, hitting the gym hard. But at 30, I would expect that to be way out of your system. You still go out, but you're not going to the cheap beer night places. You're not going to the 18 and up clubs. You're at least going to the 25 and up clubs if you're still going out. But at 30, you should be out of that clubbing phase. You should be going to lounges and things like that because you'll be the old man in the club. And at 35, this stuff should really be out of your system. At 40, the only time you end up going to a club like that is if you happen to go back home for the holidays and meet up with some friends. A 40-year-old in the 21 and up club is a pervert. You're lame and a loser. So the highest levels of accountability, you have to confess to the people around you, I'm living life wrong. This is why you're going to have to hire mentors, life coaches, and everything else. The question I really wanted to ask is, are you competent enough to live your life as an adult? Oh, but I didn't want to put that in the chat room. The question I wanted to ask is, are you really competent enough to be considered a man? Let me say this again. Let's say you're a 40-year-old dude and you've never owned a suit. You have a job and you're paying your bills, so that's cool. You're surviving. But life isn't supposed to be just surviving. Life is supposed to be thriving. You know why you avoid a mirror? Because you don't want to look yourself in the eye. See, men who are competitive and women who are beautiful have no problem being out there because even if they lose the game, they're still in it. So many guys today use the label introvert as an outright lie. I'm about to say it, and I don't mean any harm, but so many guys today are using the label introvert when they would have been called losers 20 years ago. That doesn't mean you're a king. That means you're a bum. This means you're a loser, and here's what a loser was 20 or 30 years ago. A guy who was just working a day job. He'd come home after work to his one-bedroom apartment, turn on the TV, because there was no cable, flip on ABC, NBC, CBS, whatever he had, and watch whatever local programming was on. Maybe grab a beer, put a TV dinner in the oven, or eat some canned food with crackers. He's eating, he's got his own place. He may have a car, it's older, 10 or 15 years old, held together. It's not dirty, but he's not driving what he wants to. Then you look at this dude and ask him, dude, you're 35 years old. Is this where you thought you'd be? When you were a little boy, when you were 8, did you think you'd be here? Number? But that was acceptable. We called those guys losers, and they knew they were losing. See, we have too many guys today who are losing and blaming everything else. Life isn't meant to be survived. It's meant to be thrived. And I'm definitely not living life like I should be. But understand something. If you're not living life like you should be, then there's only one thing to do. You have to go into overdrive on self-improvement, and you're not qualified to do it yourself. Again, I don't mean to be rude. I'm not trying to be hurtful, but you're not competent enough to run this part of your life.